Welcome everybody to another edition of the Journey Mapping Q&A with Daniel and myself.
Hi, good
Good to
morning.
see you again, Daniel.
Yeah, good to see you too, Mark.
Looking forward to the questions you've thought up again and what we got through the Perfect Map course. You just celebrated Midsummer Night in Sweden, right?
Yeah, it was last Friday. It was lovely. Usually it used to like rain and sun and be rain and sun, but this month midsummer it was really sunny. It was a good midsummer.
It's a good midsummer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here in Utrecht, the summer kicked off the last few days, but now it's back to gray again. If you're watching the recording of this Q&A session, tips and tricks, I'm still looking for the right title for this. Hi, leave a comment if you have any questions about what we're going to discuss. If you joined in live, say hi. We're reading the comments. We're going to answer your questions live the best way we can. Say hi in your native language, and that's a hi from Daniel. Let us know where you're watching from. We're here to help you make better maps, faster, easier, and make the lives of people better. I was thinking about something, Daniel, and I'm really curious how you think about it. I was thinking maybe we should challenge ourselves, you and I, to help to save 10,000 hours of lost productivity in people making maps that aren't getting used. Something like that, you know?
Yeah, that's perfect.
I don't know how to set that up, but just a challenge to save people from losing valuable time. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that sounds really good. Let's do that. Let's have that
As a goal.
as a challenge. Yeah, as a goal.
We'll work on the concept for that, but that would be nice to actually help people to save their time. So we picked 5-6 questions from the Perfect Map, our course on custom journey mapping, and let's just go over them, Daniel. Let me see if I can switch to this screen, and I can. Awesome. So are you ready for the first question, Daniel? And I'll need to switch over here. Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Question number 1 is it wrong to use assumption-based improvements and test them in a pilot environment? This is a question we got from Damien, a true fan, Damien. Daniel, first of all, what is the context of this question?
I think the context here it's the usual debate about how much assumption and how much true customer research do we actually need. Is it okay to just make assumptions early on in the project and then we come up with solutions and then we test those in pilots? So I think that's kind of the background, and I think that the answer to this, as usually in the things that we answer here, Mark, there's not an easy yes or no to those questions. I mean, to use assumptions early on in the project, it could be very useful because there it's important to get everyone on the train about customer journey mapping. So then it's maybe better to not fight for resources to make true customer research. So then it's better to start working with assumptions and involve a lot of internal stakeholders. Because what will happen later on is that clever people will say, is this assumption based or is this a true customer story? And then you have a lot of people fighting for real customer insights instead of wishful thinking assumptions. And that's a much clever way to go. That's one answer to this.
Yeah. So I've been using this analogy a lot of times, and people who have heard me talking know this one. But I usually compare this to the business model canvas.
Yeah.
Like you usually people just go in a workshop, start filling it in, and by filling it in, they start to understand where the gaps are
Yeah.
and where the knowledge gaps are and what they need to do instead of first researching and then filling in the business model canvas. I think that's a good way to go. The challenge would be, how do we prevent people from not taking the assumption based map as the truth, because I think that tends to happen a lot.
Yeah, that tends to happen a lot, and I think that the important thing there is to relate to a few questions, and that is, I think the most powerful question here to ask people in the team and maybe people responsible for the resources is, are we sure that we are solving the right problem? If we do assumptions early in the project and then we create things and do tests of those pilot test solutions, maybe we are just testing together with the customer solutions on the wrong problem. So I think the big challenge here is the question we have to ask people, to get people, stakeholders to be willing to do true customer research, is to, are we really solving the right problem? We have to first, together with the customer, understand the problem, and then together with the customer we could create the solution.
Right.
If we don't create the problem, it's like traditional digital A and B testing. I mean, everybody's familiar with A and B testing. Usually what it ends up is that we have two bad solutions, A and B. And the A and B testing are showing us that A is a little less bad than B. Let's go with A then. So that's why it's so important to make sure that we are solving the right problem.
A general design tip, I'd say.
Yeah. And when you already have solutions, you have kind of closed your ear for that kind of listening that broaden the perspective.
Exactly.
And I mean, for me, I've been doing so many projects, and today I work with Custellence in my daily, and I see so many things that we are developing in Custellence where if we listen to the customer's will and not understand the problem, we would go wrong in a few months. It would be an unuseful tool.
Okay. Hope this helps, Daniel and Damien. And as always, if there are any questions left, feel free to leave them in a comment. And we've got people watching from India, Daniel.
Lovely. Nice to see you. Let's
move on to the next question. And the next question is going to be, that's a really interesting one from Daniela. And he asked, how do I draw a third customer journey map to bridge the as is and the to be map? So maybe I can give a little bit of context in this situation, because this is a question I got from Daniela through the mail recently. And basically the situation is they're creating a customer journey map of the current situation of the service they're building, mapping the stages, and they know that they will be expanding the journey in the future. This is not the end journey. This is like a minimal viable product or service journey. And they also want to map the to be journey, like how would it look or should it look in 3 to 5 years. And now the question comes, if you have those two maps, today and 5 years, how do we bridge that gap? How do we create how do we make this reality? Should we create another map, or what is the approach here?
Yes, I have done it in several projects where we created an as-is map and a to-be map, and then created evolutional steps in between. So with several maps, with one minimal viable product very close to the as is, and then maybe in a more desired with a bit more resources in the future. I think that's a way to do it if you just look at it from a service designer's perspective, creating a lot of maps. When you look at it from from a business perspective, it's super stupid in the first place to create as is and to be maps, because then we have to keep looking at several maps. We have to keep updating several maps. How do we relate to the as is when 2 months, when we have been going 2 months, the as is not an as is anymore. So this was one of the challenges when we started to create Custellence 5 years ago, to make it possible to create the same everything in the same map. So we just have to update and relate to one map. And this is what we see people are doing today, that they create several lanes for if it's an as is, or if it's to be, if it's a minimal viable product, if it's a desired situation, or if it's the ultimate solution. You will never reach that. I think if the question is, should we do a third map between as is and to be, the answer is yes. But a better answer to this is stop doing as is and to be maps. Make it all in the same map.
Make it an operational map.
Yes, because we have done this, and I saw it so clearly that when we put everything in the same map, okay, it would be a bigger map, it would be more complex, but you will draw everybody's attention to one map, and you could keep updating that map. I've seen that. Of course, there are problems with that as well, because it will be big, but the problems are so much smaller than the problems with as is and to be maps and bridge maps. So put them in the same map.
Okay. Now, I can imagine that there is a desire for some people who want to show a situation like 3 years out is really far out.
Yeah.
And adding that to operational map, a day-to-day map. I can imagine that if you want to have conversations with the CEO or other stakeholders, you don't want to show them the map you're working on. You just want to show them the future vision or use that to guide development.
Okay, showing managers a desired future to be situation, that's dangerous. Because managers, C-level people usually think that what's been said and thought is already done. So it's the best thing is to show where are we today, where do we want to be in the future, and how are we going between A and B.
Yeah, and that's the question here, I guess, right? That's the bridge we're talking about. So how do you show that?
Yeah, and I think that the best thing is to keep it in the same map. And if you are not confident with putting up everything up front, just put it in sublanes in Custellence and have the sublanes for how do we solve this today, how will we solve it in the future, and what are the middle steps, what is possible to make, what could we possibly do today. I see this as really the best practice on doing this, because the minimal viable product is what can we do with the IT we have today. In the future, we will have a different IT solution, then we could do this. But what can we do today? So having like three parts at 5 years, what could we do now? How are we doing it today in sublanes? And just close them, and you don't need to show that to the C-level people if they're not interested in details.
So basically, adding some kind of roadmap, milestones in the journey, in the map.
Yes. I think that's a general, really good thing to do. To looking at the journey map as a change plan. and not as a
Right.
as an image.
Right. Yeah.
That's like a shot of the
A snapshot.
like a snapshot of the situation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let me know, Danielle, if it's an Italian name, so it's Daniela. If this helps, otherwise leave a comment. To answer the question of Shubham in the chat, general questions about service design, we're not going to answer them in this session. We might if we have a few minutes at the end, but we're focusing on customer journey mapping specifically. And I'd be happy to answer some of your questions through LinkedIn. So feel free to send me a message there, and I'll happily answer your questions. This session is all about journey mapping. All right. Next question. Next question is going to be this one. What are the trade-offs that a team has to make to implement the ideas, and what are the usual challenges? And this is a question from Arun, also a big fan of the work we're doing. Take it away, Daniel.
I think that looking at it as trade-offs maybe is a bit of a problem-free mindset. I think that everything that happens in an organization when you do things is finding a solution to a very large set of things that we have to take into consideration. So I think that, of course, there will be trade-offs, but it's more that we find a way to do it that works for all different, that works for IT, that works for legal, that works for the salespeople, for the product owners, that works for the customers. It's always a work of finding the best solution for all those people that are involved in this, and that's where the customer comes into the room here, because everybody wants to do the best and serve the customers. So a way for us to find each other is to gather around the customer as our center,
right,
focus point. Okay, but when starting to implement things, it's natural that a lot of more aspects will come into considerations in the development. And important there is that the people that work closest to the customers and have come up with those ideas from the journey maps understand that what's the smallest solution, the simplest solution that will provide value.
What do you mean?
If we are going to make a new boarding for whatever it could be, and then we take away this and this and this and this, then it doesn't provide any value for the customer. So we could take away that, and we could make this one in a different way. We could change this. But if we take away this one, it won't provide any value. So we have to do what kind of trade-offs. We have to be ready to make a lot of compromises, but we also have to understand what can't be compromised.
Right.
So I've seen this several times where the development of customer people close to the customer journey and the development thinks that they have to fight for everything. They have to choose what should we fight for, because if we take away those core things, we shouldn't do it at all. We should stop doing it. It's better to wait until we could solve it issues. So, and I think a good way to look at this is to find it as an interesting thing. You have to kind of like to collaborate with others, understand their opinions internally from different stakeholders and different departments, and like the idea of doing something that works for all of us. Not that you are disappointed because we couldn't do this fantastic solution. We can never make that fantastic solution. So we should be happy if we could do 30% of that fantastic solution and it still provide a lot of value for the customer.
And that's not per se a skill that is found in every service designer, right? That maybe is a different role within an organization. What do you think?
I think that for me as an industrial designer, when I studied in the 90s, that's ages ago, I learned that it's never the best design that will reach the customer. It's the designers who are most skilled in politics and collaboration with people. So every car you see on the street, it's not the best car design that reached us. It's the people behind it that was best on compromising and handling internal politics and different departments. And it's the same with designing services.
Mm-hmm. So the question that we also get in the chat here is like, how do you know what a 20 or 30% are? What are the things that you can't remove? How do you know that?
It's about understanding the customer that good. So you know that if we haven't solved this, there won't be any value. It's a customer understanding thing to know that.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and of course we could just take the solutions, co-create them, test them with the customers, and see will it create value or not. If we make this solution this way, will there be any value?
And if that's basically the approach we sort of preach. Make a prototype, do it quick, cheap, and often, and see eventually where people derive value from, and then you sort of start to understand what are the things we need to keep, and what are all the things that we thought we needed, but actually people don't really care about.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to an earlier question as well, that we have to be super sure about the customer's problem, which means that if we could solve it in a different way, it doesn't matter, because it's not the solution that matters for the customer, it's solving the problem that matters.
And they will be even happy if we can do it in a cheap, fast way without adding a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, because we have a few more interesting questions to go over. Again, if you're watching in the chat, more people are joining. Say hi, let us know where you're from. If you have any questions about journey mapping, this is your opportunity to fire away, because Daniel and I will be here answering also your questions. The next question is also really interesting. All of them are. They are asked by people who are going through the Perfect Map course, and they are really running into these challenges. So that's what I really like about these sessions, that we talk about real life challenges. And this was a question from Bartosz, and he asked, how do I convince people not experienced with journey mapping to use tools, including sophisticated ones like Custellence? So I can totally imagine this. You're the person excited about journey mapping. You see the value in your organization. You think we need to do this. So the first challenge is, how do I get my team to start using journey mapping? And then the next step is even, how do I convince them to use more sophisticated tools. I think this is a challenge so many people run into. Do you recognize this, Daniel?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And what I also recognize is that the people that use sophisticated tools like Custellence, they have been on a journey. They have started with post-its. They have tried to do it in Excel. They have understood it doesn't work. They have tried to do it in InDesign, and then you have an image. They have tried to, etc. And then they try to convince other people internally that haven't been on this journey
They
to
haven't
now go
experienced
with
the pain. Yeah.
to go with sophisticated tools like Custellence. I mean, how could you ever think that those people, without that year of struggle with like Stone Age solutions, how could they ever think of going with a tool for this? I think that what you have to do is to really, I mean, first, as you say, Mark, to just show them the power of customer journey map, and then understanding on a very basic level the skills. Just start with post-its, and then make a post-it session, and people not used to post-its will quickly understand that. I think I have some post-its there behind me. No, I haven't. I mean, if you take it away in the wrong way, they will be curly. So you need a course how to take away post-its in a professional way. I think people pretty quick will understand the challenges with not using purpose tools if they have been part of the same journey with understanding journey mapping, understanding the challenges with post-its, PowerPoints, etc. And I think that understanding those challenges are how do we spread this? They have to understand that customer experience is teamwork. So we have to invite people early on, and we can't be 100 people in the workshop. How do we keep updating this? All those questions. How do we add all the discussions that we had here into a structure that we could keep working on? I think all those things, if you just help people being part of this process, they will also come to the conclusion that we need tools to make this in a proper way. I think another thing that is those are the questions connected to challenges when not working with tools like Custellence. But it's another thing here is also that what is the value? What is the business value of keeping in the operational business always working with our customer journeys when not putting a lot of money in developing things that the customer never wanted, when sales department are selling something that the product department can't deliver. I mean, what are the challenges if we don't work customer-centric from journeys, and if it's not spread across the organization? What if branding makes their customer journey, and the product owners make their customer journeys, and say, no, we have put our budget and used consultants to make our customer journeys. You have to make your own. Doesn't we just create more silos?
I think to add to what you're saying, probably the most powerful way is if you can find examples of the issues you just addressed that actually happen in your own organization and show them to people.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember that last year we had 3 departments? Like, we had branding, marketing, and innovation. And look at this. These are the 3 different journey maps. Or do you remember those workshops we did last year where we mapped the journey? Well, all the post-its are on the floor and nobody knows where the map is. So I think it's really powerful if you can actually, because you don't want people to have to go through that journey of doing post-its, running into the challenges. You want to speed up their process to let them accept that it's valuable to use more sophisticated tools. And I think it's really powerful if you start collecting evidence of where those pain points are within your own organization.
I totally agree. And one proof of that, or another aspect I think is very good to collect, is if there has been journey mapping efforts before, it's a good question to go back and see what have we managed to implement from that. How much money did we put into that, and how much have we implemented it? And then usually when just working with post-its or something, or similar things to that is not purpose fit. Usually you would see that we did a great workshop, and we did some really good customer insights. We did some really good customer journeys. We haven't managed to implement anything of it. Okay, great. That's well spent money.
I think what would be interesting, maybe we should do a session, Daniel, on where we invite the community to share their examples of where they are running into real life challenges like this.
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
That would be really interesting, just to see what people are actually experiencing, and how we can help each other to give proof to other stakeholders. Again, another content idea that we need to work on. Are you happy with this question? Anything else to add, or should we move on to the next one?
Let's move on. I just think there are so many things that could be added to this. One for instance, which I think is super powerful, that is it important for our organization to be customer centric? Yes or no? Just a simple question to the C-level people. If they say yes, then you say, okay, what tools do we have to make that? It's just quite simple. We have no tools. Okay, you say it's important, but we have no tools to do it. Yeah, let's move on. We could keep talking about this question for another hour.
We'll probably will some other time. The final question for this Q&A. That's... I see a question from Gwen. We'll answer that after this question. So, because this is a classic one, Daniel, we answered this one also in the perfect map, but we're giving away free content, so why not just answer it here as well? This is a question from Marie, and she said, what is the difference between a service blueprint and a customer journey map? Before we answer this one, people who want to know more about this question, we answered this in our free customer journey mapping essentials masterclass, 1 hour long masterclass. I'll put the link for it in the notes of this video, but let's answer it right now, Daniel. You have a really clear explanation.
Yeah. The customer journey map is a part of the service blueprint. So a service blueprint, the classical service blueprint, is where you have the customer journey on the top. You have the customer perspective on the top, and based on it, the starting point there is the customer's situations or activities going through an offer or a service or experience. Under that, you have the touch points. What is visible from our organization? What are the meeting points between our organization and the customer? So that's under it. And then if you go down even one more step, then you have, what are we doing internally? What are employees doing? What kind of processes do we have? What kind of support systems do we have? That's the lowest part in the service blueprint. So the top, the customer situation, is actually the customer journey map. And people used to put touch points in the customer journey map as well. So I would say that's kind of the customer journey map. Then when you add, what are we doing internally? What are behind the line of visibility? then we start to talk about what are we doing as an organization to make all the things on that the customer can see. Then it's a service blueprint.
Yeah. So the way I like to see it is, what are we doing to actually deliver the service?
Yes.
And anything that has to do with how you answer that question, that is part of the service blueprint, right?
Yes. I think that it sometimes the service blueprint, or usually I would say, I mean, that's where you really create value, because why should we know what the customer are doing if we don't have any means to make anything about it? And I think that many organizations started to make customer journey maps. The first mistake they do is that they just list a lot of touch points, and that's super stupid. But even if they work from the customer's perspective and they have the touch points and they see problems, if they don't work with what happens behind it, what do we do about it? Why are they doing customer journey maps in the first place at all? I mean, why even bother about it? Why bother to understand the customer's perspective if you don't do anything about it?
And that's one of my tricks, is to talk to a customer who wants to do a journey map, is to ask them, how much budget do you have to actually implement the ideas that come out of it? How much time and budget? Because you don't want to create a customer journey map. You want to improve a process. You want to create a new service. That's the conversation you should be having. But maybe we're sort of drifting off. But if somebody asks you for a journey map, say that's great, but you're going to do something with the map.
But I think that's very important, and I think it's good for the whole customer journey mapping community to be sure that the customer journey maps that we are doing in this overall global movement, that you really create value of it. Otherwise, people will stop doing customer journey maps in a few years and think, it was a fun thing. But this year we do some different kickoff.
We have a new canvas. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty clear on the difference between a service blueprint and a customer journey map. Daniel, let's use a few minutes, because we've got a question from Gwyn, and I can magically let this appear on the screen. And Gwyn asks, how do you know how much depth to go into with each journey map? Can you share a few words about that?
Yeah, in the course, and also I think in earlier movies that we we launched here, Mark. And also, if you take a look in the Custellence Help Center, there's a lot of, you can find a lot of information on this, and everything is based on the same idea of different levels of journey maps. So level 1 is kind of before, during, after. Level 2 is what happens in before, what happens in during, what happens in after, and that could be, I would say, maximum 25, 30 steps. 30 steps is really much. I mean, usually it's like 15 or something. Then level 3 is what is happening in one of those. Then we go into even more depth. What is actually happening when I'm going to go to this dentist? And level 4 is like clicking through a form or an onboarding thing, or receiving that mail. So the answer to this question is that always make a level 1 and a level 2, because you need that overall picture. And if you start to create a map that consists of more than 25, 30 steps, then you're probably doing a level 3. And you should decide, is this something that we should prioritize or not? You can't make a level 3 over the whole journey. You have to decide what are the main pains here, or what we could gain most, and focus on those and make level 3s. And level 4 is more like a really, really deep. So what I see is people creating stacks of journey maps where they link from a level 2 down to a level 3 to keep the level 2 very clean from too deep data. Did that answer this question?
Let us know, Gwyn. And if you want to know more, I think we specifically discussed this in the last edition of this Q&A session, and you can find the recordings somewhere here on the YouTube channel. And I think the video is called "How Detailed Should a Journey Map Be?" So probably if you look for that, you'll find the answer. And the last thing you mentioned, Daniel, about linking maps, that's for sure part of the previous recording.
Yeah.
Okay. We got one final question from Mohammed. Daniel, do you know any certification courses for customer experience managers? Not specifically a customer journey mapping question, but nevertheless.
Yeah, I see some people engage in this, what is called CXCP.
Right.
I don't know that much about those courses, but I meet a lot of people that had gone through them and are sophisticated, have the certification, and I think they do pretty good things actually. Probably they are more. I think maybe it's better that we check it up and then we give a more thought through answer. But there are a few networks where I think maybe those. Do you know those CXCP or XP or something?
Yeah, if you look on LinkedIn, you'll find a few people probably in your contact list who have added that to their name as a badge. So and I wouldn't be aware of any other courses. It's not my field of expertise to talk about that. So let's round it up, Daniel, because our time is over. Gwyn says, thank you so much. Happy to help, Gwyn. And again, if you want to know more, check out the free masterclass or join the Perfect Map. You'll see more of Daniel and me. Daniel, I'll catch you in a month in the July edition of the session.
Perfect.
Thanks so much for sharing, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you too, Mark. It's been always so nice to make those, and thanks for watching. I mean,
thanks for hanging out with us. Definitely from wherever you was. Bye. See you the next time.
Yeah. Have a lovely Wednesday.